From students to seniors, from First Nations to recent arrivals, New Democrats are taking a simple message from coast to coast to coast in the next election. The NDP is on your side. The Prime Minister had a tough year in 2013. I can't promise you that it's not going to be tougher for him in 2014. From the Senate scandal to covering up criminal activity in the Prime Minister's office, the audits and inquiries and investigations have only just begun. This Prime Minister promised to put an end to the culture of corruption that flourished under the Liberals. Instead, he's only made it worse. He promised to put an end to the perks and payoffs for party insiders, but instead he's put even more of his own insiders in the Senate than Brian Mulroney. The corruption, the entitlement, the lack of accountability. For the Prime Minister, it's all good to go. Well, Canadians have had enough. They've had enough of the revolving red and blue doors of Liberal and Conservative corruption and entitlement. The fact is, Ottawa's broken. And while the Liberals wait for their turn at the trough, the NDP is the only party that will fix it. And that's why the work we're doing this week is so important, because Canadians are counting on us. They're counting on us to make life more affordable for their families, to help them save and invest for their retirement, and to create high-paying, middle-class jobs in every sector and in every region. Canadians are counting on us to help usher in a new generation of opportunity and prosperity, the kind of opportunity that my generation was fortunate enough to inherit from our parents. You know, every year over the holidays, I help out with an extraordinary organization called Sun Youth that's been serving the needy in Montreal for about 50 years. Sun Youth was created to help underprivileged young people with everything from food drives to sports programs to healthcare services. Now, over the holidays, one of the group's leaders, a man I've had the honor to know for many years named Tommy Kulchek, was telling me about the types of families that are now coming through the doors at Sun Youth these days. Now, it's no longer just families that are out of work or stuck in a cycle of poverty. What he's telling me is that you're often seeing families where both parents are working, and in fact, sometimes multiple jobs between them, but these are young families struggling to keep up, but they're working low wage, very precarious, and almost always part-time jobs. That's why there's sometimes several of them, without any real opportunity to get ahead. That's the trap. Well, sure, they're working, but they can't afford that increase in their hydro bill. They can't afford getting nickel and dime, $2, $3, $4 every time they go to an ATM, or getting hit with whopping interest rates on a payday loan. That's usurious. It should be stopped, and we will. This is the changing face of struggling families in Canada, and we're seeing it right across the country in all of our ridings. It doesn't have to be that way. That's where we come in. We can do better. We must do better, and mark my words, New Democrats will do better. When the minority Paul Martin government was looking for support for their budget, they came to Jack and the NDP, and they said, well, here's our budget. It includes $4.6 billion of tax reductions for Canada's richest corporations. And Jack said, that's interesting. What about affordable housing? What about public transit? What about student debt? Those were our priorities. That's where we put the money. We know who we are. We know who the Liberals are. Don't ever forget it. Now, of course, we do know that the Conservative record isn't any better. Record trade deficits from these brilliant financial managers. Skyrocketing household debt, the worst in the OECD under these extraordinary administrators. And hundreds of thousands of high-paying manufacturing jobs gone. But instead of doing something about it, which is what governments are supposed to do, instead of giving Canadian families a break, instead of working to create the next generation of middle-class jobs, the Conservative message to Canadians has been, you're on your own, get used to it. Well, you may not be ready to tackle these issues head-on, but New Democrats are. You know what? Unlike James Moore, New Democrats actually believe that we do have to look out for our neighbors' children. We are motivated and we come to work every day knowing that the struggles of Canadians everywhere are our struggles. The challenges facing Canadians everywhere are our challenges. Together we will rise to meet these challenges and build a more prosperous Canada, not just for some of us, but for each and every one of us. Even as Mr. Harper has broken his promises on pensions, he's slashing services that Canadian seniors have relied on for generations. The fact is, he has no vision, he has no ideas. Let's take Canada Post. Here's an organization that's turned a profit for 17 of the last 18 years. The only year it didn't was the year Conservatives locked out postal workers. Two might be connected. Yet despite those numbers, Conservatives are poised to make Canada the only country in the developed world without home mail delivery. How did they let that happen? I don't know if you had a chance to read Peter O'Neill's piece today, but Stephen Harper's finally realized that the temporary foreign worker program has a few problems. It was almost as if he had been taking all of our questions in question period and reading them to this closed meeting. The only problem is, he's the one who did it. I mean, it's unbelievable. Canada is among the most entrepreneurial countries in the world. And more businesses are being started by young people. It's the way to create a job in many cases. Even through the recession, Canadian small businesses, and Glenn can talk to you about it, he visits them all the time, thrived and multiplied. But for far too long, too many of our small businesses have stayed small. Since 2006, the number of small businesses in our country has grown by more than 44,000, but the number of medium-sized businesses has actually shrunk. That's a trend that can't be allowed to continue. So this spring, New Democrats are launching a national consultation with small and medium-sized business owners. We're reaching out. We're engaging local business owners, and we're going to work together to find ways to help them grow and prosper in the 21st century. New Democrats will also keep leading the fight to strengthen public pensions. A long list of experts, from provincial governments to seniors groups to financial advisors, have told this government that strengthening the Canada and Quebec pension plans is the best way to help Canadians save and invest for their retirement. Otherwise, we're leaving a huge debt to the next generation on that level as well. They're going to have to take care of it. And of course, as we work to help create high-quality middle-class jobs and strengthen retirement security, we're also going to keep working to make life more affordable for families. Canadians work hard, we all know that, and they deserve a break now and then. In October's throne speech, Conservatives promised that they had discovered something new, the importance of protecting consumers. news for all of us. They promised to take action on unfair banking fees, and they promised, you remember this part? They promised to enact an airline passenger bill of rights. That particular promise evaporated before the throne speech was even delivered. In other words, Conservatives promised to take a few pages out of the NDP playbook. That would have been fine, imitation's the highest form of flattery. Well, with the budget just a few weeks away, it's time for them to finally act. It's time for them to keep their word. And New Democrats will work tirelessly to make sure they do just that. That's why today, I'm announcing a nationwide NDP campaign to make life more affordable for Canadian families. Starting next week, I'll be traveling across the country to meet with Canadians in their homes, in their communities, to discuss ways we can tackle staggering bills and skyrocketing household debt. We're going to protect consumers. We're going to stand up for families, and we're going to stand up for all Canadians. For far too long, Canadians have been told that they have to choose between Conservative corruption and Liberal corruption. They've been told they have to accept less, that their children have to accept less, and that the services and benefits they've relied on for generations are suddenly unaffordable. Well, New Democrats are giving Canadians a different choice, a positive choice. We're looking closer than ever at the possibility of forming an NDP government. Canadians are looking at us differently. They realize that it's become a real possibility. And they'll get a government that puts the interests of Canadians first, and it's time to take the next step. Every hope of every Canadian who longs for a better future for their children, every Canadian who's ever dreamt of fairness and equality has brought us to this day. The rest is up to us. My friends, we can get it done. We will get it done. This is our moment to work together and build bridges, to show Canadians that they can vote for the change they want and for once actually get it. This is our moment to build the Canada of our dreams, not just for today, but for generations to come. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. On continue.